Most of what we think we know about the Library of Alexandria is downstream of one or two sources, and those sources had reasons to lie. Let's pull on that thread. The story is familiar enough to work as shorthand. One great library holding the accumulated learning of the ancient world. One catastrophic fire. Centuries of knowledge gone in a night, and a dark age on the other side of it. It is among the most powerful images we have about the fragility of knowledge. It is also, as a description of events, almost certainly wrong, not because the library never burned, but because it never had a single ending. The record shows something slower, less dramatic, and considerably more uncomfortable. There are 3 candidate destroyers in the popular account, and they arrive centuries apart. The first is Julius Caesar, whose fire in the harbour in 48 BCE is said to have spread into the library. The second is the destruction of the Serapeum, Alexandria's daughter library, in 391 CE. The third is the Arab conquest, in which a caliph is said to have ordered the scrolls burned to heat the city's bath houses. Each of these has been treated as the ending at different points in history. Notice what they have in common. Each blames a clearly identifiable outsider, and each version was most popular in a period that had its own reasons to want that particular outsider blamed. That alone should make us cautious before we have examined a single source. Take them in order. Caesar's own account of the Civil War describes burning ships in the harbor and says nothing about a library. The claim that the fire reached the collection comes from later writers, Plutarch among them, composing more than a century after the event. Something burned. The scale is not established. Strabo, the geographer, was in Alexandria roughly 2 decades after Caesar and describes the Mouseion, the research institution the library belonged to, as still functioning, which is difficult to square with total destruction. The Serapeum genuinely was destroyed in 391, and that is well attested, but the sources describing it are arguing about religion, not counting scrolls. And the caliph's story appears first in Bar Hebraeus, a 13th century writer, some 600 years after the conquest he describes. On that last one most historians are dismissive, and the chronology is the reason. Here is what the record does support. Alexandrian scholarship declined across centuries through withdrawn patronage, expulsions of scholars, the city's political collapse, and the ordinary attrition of papyrus, which rots in most conditions. Rome had already become the center of gravity for elite learning. Institutional death by budget and neglect is what the evidence describes. It is also completely unusable as a story. A fire has a villain, a date, and a moral. And here is the beat this channel exists for. We do not actually know how large the library was. The figures in the ancient sources run from tens of thousands of scrolls to 700,000. They come from writers with no access to a catalogue, and they contradict each other. We do not know when the main collection stopped functioning. No closing date was recorded because nobody present noticed an ending. So the library did not fall. It was defunded, dispersed, and forgotten across a span long enough that nobody alive at the end remembered the beginning. The reason we remember a fire instead is that a fire can be blamed on someone, and every era that retold this story had a someone it wanted blamed. What survives is often what was useful to power, not what was true. If a piece of this story changed your mind, or didn't, that's the point. I'm Marcus. Until next time.